Cool. Alrighty. So, everyone, welcome to the Out Loud podcast with the word is right. I got myself, Shocky G, your favorite poet, you just don't know it, and my co-hosts, Douglas and Starchild. What's going on, guys?
Dylan, good
Not
to
too
be
much.
here.
Yeah.
Hold on, folks. What's going on, folks?
Mhm. Doing
Yeah.
good.
Running the LGBTQ podcast, and I'm very terrible with my gendered language. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. um,
I'm Gen X, so I don't even know what the right language for myself is.
Yeah, that's how I am. Yeah. We're gonna get into that a little bit today. So today we had a cancellation. Amanda Shea will not be with us today. We will get her rescheduled, but we still got Generalissimo, the amazing Generalissimo. I call him Uncle G.
Woo!
Brian Franco in the building. G, how you doing? And now he does not respond. Awesome. We're
Oh
doing great.
no!
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. I was trying to dig up some poems to read.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. You
Cool,
sort of
cool.
surprised me when you called me because I was lying down to take a nap. That's why I was doing nothing.
Oh,
Is
I'm
when you
sorry.
No, that's okay. When you get my age, sometimes you take afternoon naps, but it's a lot
I
better
take
to do.
afternoon naps now. I don't know what you're talking about.
So
But no, we're
where are you in
thankful.
Arizona? Where are you in Arizona right now? Phoenix or Tucson or
Phoenix. Phoenix. Yeah, we're in Phoenix.
I wonder if you, well, I doubt you, I don't know if you got to meet Kimlin. I don't know. You know who
Uh,
Kimlin Tambapi.
yeah, I know who she is, but I didn't know she was out here, so I didn't reach out to her.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but I'm
okay.
here. I'll be here until the summit, so I still got 2 weeks.
Oh,
It's Virgo, and it's Virgo season, so we're gonna be out here acting crazy a little bit.
there's a lot. I remember meeting quite a few people from Phoenix a while back. And yeah, wait, was iWhips in Phoenix?
It might have been.
I think iWhips was in Phoenix in 2014 when I went to it. So yeah, that was iWhips was in Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
And that was really fun. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, this is not about me. This is about you, Brian Franco,
yeah, well,
author of Everything I Think Is All in My Head.
oh,
You,
Shocky.
what?
Terry, would you tell Shocky the title of my book?
Is that not it? Everything I Think Is All in My Head?
Everything I think is in my mind.
Oh, it's all in my mind. Damn it.
Oh.
That was one word. Come on now. I don't have my
No,
books in
no,
front of me. I'm not
no
home.
sweet potatoes for you at Thanksgiving, baby.
That's all right. I don't like sweet potatoes. Huh.
Oh my
Everything
God.
I think is all
Are
in
you
my mind.
positive Oh are man. you positive you're related to me if you don't like sweet potatoes?
I don't like the way they make them on Thanksgiving, like with the
Oh, well, you don't
marshmallows
have
on
to. I'm not
top and all
crazy
that.
about I like pie, but I'm not crazy about candied yams.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of
Mm.
that.
I
But
was gonna say no sweet
so
potato pie for you, baby.
everything I think is all in my mind. And Generalissimo is out of Maine. Am I correct?
I hope you are.
Okay. What's the poetry scene like out there?
It's halfway decent. It's when I first moved here in 2001, so there's a lot of the poetry scene that I really don't. There's a lot of different kinds of things that go on that I'm not necessarily involved in or that I necessarily have access to.
Hmm.
And but so when I lived in Portland, Maine, and in 2001 there were five different open mics at the time. So I think there was two monthly, two bi-weekly, and two bi-monthly, and one weekly. And it was a really great place for reading poetry. And over time, they all it withered away to just one open mic reading. I know that there's probably been other things around that I just never really knew about. And I took a few years off when I was very, very depressed. And I was well, first I had a job that didn't allow me to do anything. And then I got really, really depressed. And then I came back around 2005 or 2006, and there was one reading that was going on at that time, and then another one came out of that reading. That was the one. The reading was called the original reading was Port Veritas, and it sort of has gone through quite a few venues. And recently, right before the pandemic, the longtime host and organizer retired and handed it over to this woman. And at that time, I really wasn't actively doing poetry. I'd been taking a break for a while,
Mhm.
and when I came back, she was there, and then the venue got lost during the pandemic. It closed,
Mhm.
and she moved it to a place called the Equality Center, which is a really nice place that houses mostly LGBT Q nonprofits.
Mhm.
And it has a big lobby area that she does it in, and it's both online and live at the same time. And she was the Portland Poet Laureate for 2 or 3 years,
Oh, cool.
which yeah, and she was under 30, so she was really like very young to be a poet laureate, but she's very accomplished and very involved in a lot of different things within the different communities within Portland. And yeah, but anyways, but recently I've discovered some new open mics that I didn't know about in different small towns. And uh so I'm kind of and there was an organization called Portland Poet Society that at one point had 4 venues across a month, and now it's only back to one venue. And Doug went to one of their open mics with me when he came to visit a friend of his. But yeah, it's a good place. There's a lot of interesting stuff. There's stuff going on, and yeah, so that's it. And
I'm
you
not
know,
calling you old. You're older than me.
I am
And
older.
I
I,
look back,
I think the oldest person here is Robert, though.
I believe that. Um,
Well, I don't know. He might be younger than me. I'm not really sure, but I think he is older than me.
I don't think Robert's older than you. But either way, the question here. So I remember when I was young, um, being gay, queer, however you label yourself, um, the landscape is much different now, right? When I was younger, that was during the time of like the Matthew Shepard case, and a lot of cases of gay panic and just not being out and flamboyant, and it just wasn't a thing back then. And I wonder how you've seen the landscape changing in the queer community um, throughout your time as
Okay,
a queer man.
first of all, when I was growing up, I probably knew I was gay when I was a teenager, but could never admit it to myself. So I probably thought of myself as bisexual, even though I wasn't really sexually active at all for a while till I was in college. And I think that not till I was out of college and I moved to New York City could I really be out, live out as an out gay man. It's still, even then, I was very careful about who I told. That was in the I lived in New York from 93 to December of 95. And so even then, because AIDS was still pretty prevalent, and even then, you had to be careful who you told, right? And so I think that it's changed a great deal. I mean, take the word queer, which I know was reclaimed, probably in the 80s, if not earlier. I still, when I was growing up, I never once heard the word queer in any light outside of derogatory. So I still can't refer to myself as a queer person because my memory of that word has never been positive, and it's hard to do that.
Right, right. Now, talk about what that was like being a young adult during the AIDS epidemic. You know that time is something that it hits me emotionally. My father was a gay man. He did die as a result of the AIDS epidemic. But for a young man growing up in that time, probably in your sexual prime, What was that like for you, especially being in New York City? Like that's
Yeah. Well, I'm not, I know a lot of people think of me as outgoing, but I'm also kind of have a very shy side to me. But, to finally be somewhere where I could feel comfortable being gay and to finally have gay friends and to go to gay bars. I never really felt overly comfortable in gay bars. It's just the way gay bars work, or it's a very hard thing to be comfortable. I think there were some that I felt more comfortable in, and I don't go to gay bars anymore. But um, it was kind of it was very enlightening in New York, and at the same time, like I said, you still had to be sort of careful, you know. And I think that one of the so there is this weird thing that happened to me. So um I was on my father had passed away, but I was still on a Cobra from his insurance policy when I moved to New York. And so I had insurance, and so I was able to get a doctor. I was able to get a doctor through that insurance, and I found this Jewish. What I did is I asked them I wanted to find someone that was relatively within walking distance of where I was living, right? So I called up the insurance company. I said, "Hey, I'd like to find a, I'd like to find a physician. Can I get it? Is there any way you can give me a list of people, with addresses?" And they did, and that was great. And so I don't know, somewhere about 2 years in, so I would get tested every 6 months for HIV. I just asked him to do so. He didn't say anything to me. And at that time, the general rule was they used to give the advice, never tell your physician that you're gay,
right.
because then he can report it to the insurance company and they won't necessarily cancel you, but they could up your rates or whatever. And also, since I was on a Cobra policy at the time, that made it harder. But anyway, so I never said anything to him about it. He never asked me about it. And so I get tested. My test was supposed to come back in on a Thursday, and I call back on a Thursday, and she said, "Well, he's going on vacation, and he's going to be gone for a week, and he's not here right now, and so you can get your results in a week after he gets back." I said, "No, can you give me the results?" And I went through all this with him, and then I actually came down there to ask about it in person, because I said, I'm not going to wait a week. I don't understand that he can't just call me on the phone and give me my results. And then I went home, and then he called me on the phone and gave me my results and told me I was inconclusive.
You were
And
what?
inconclusive,
Oh, okay.
but I wasn't.
Well,
I was negative. And I actually got the I went to the lab that did the results, who said that he misread it. And then when I finally talked to him a week later, because he went on vacation to his vacation home, he said, "Well, maybe from now on you should get tested through the Gay Men's Health Association." And there was an organization called the Gay Men's Health Crisis. I'm not sure if they're still around, but they were like a major gay rights organization, and I don't know. I don't even think they did testing, but he didn't even get the name of the organization correct. But I liked him as a doctor because he was an old Jewish guy,
Mhm.
and he was just whenever I came in, he made me feel very comfortable, and this situation just made me feel so uncomfortable around him afterwards.
Right.
And I don't think that he was anti-gay or anything. I think that he was ready to retire because his partner had retired like about a year in from when I worked, and he never got another. He didn't. There was another doctor never came in, and I never really thought about it because I was pretty healthy, and so I never had any real reasons to have any more than see him, than for a physical or anything else. But it was really kind of crazy. Actually, I do have a poem about that, which
All right.
is kind of let me think what it's called.
I'm gonna have you read it when you do your feature here in a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, so, Star Child, I know you were on the mental health side, but what does that reaction that you get hearing that? Like back then, you could not tell your doctor about your orientation.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, there are so many layers to what you're describing as I'm thinking about this, like just the way that, you know, you were talking about just not necessarily feeling completely comfortable, like kind of in the conventional scene, in the gay bar scene, and then having this guy that you finally feel comfortable with, and then, you know, I mean, it kind of feels like you got blown off a little bit, and not have, just I mean, as soon as you said the word inconclusive, I was just like, oh my gosh. You know, I just can't imagine what the anxiety would have been like.
And
Yeah.
I can only imagine because back then, I mean, 93, I think it started to ease up a little bit, but like back then, just the mention of like HIV, there was this stigma that it was mostly homosexuals that weren't contracting it. So I'm sure wanting to be tested was kind of, they automatically made that distinction or assumption about you, for him to say, go to the gay men's clinic.
Yeah. But I am really interested, in just hearing more about, because you talked about, going through depression, you know, and just how the mental health journey has been, in connection with um just this experience of being gay, and in a time, when that had, yeah, just a very different world than we live in now.
So you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I
So just
kind
like,
of, I have always, being gay really didn't, is it wasn't part of my depression. I don't think. I've
okay.
always been
Yeah.
able to sort of separate being gay from a lot of other things in my life because it's to me, and it's like being white. It's just part of something that I was born.
Hmm.
So it's not something that I feel has really affected a lot of parts of my life. I mean, I've never had any in all the jobs I've had, I've never had anybody say anything negative to me or that might have not, or anyone that thought I was gay or anything like that. So I can't really say anything that as an
Okay.
adult that's affected
Yeah.
me negatively. So I can't.
Yeah.
And then I think that when my depression hit, it manifested pretty late. I was like in my late 20s. Actually, it first manifested when I was in New York, but it had nothing to do with being gay. It
Uh-huh.
just it happened, and then when it really hit really badly, it again, and not just in Maine, but also after I moved back to Alabama. I think that it had nothing to do with being gay. It just
Hmm.
and I've
Okay.
usually sort of when I kind of when I felt the most heavy times of depression, I know to not try to I've known not to try to be try to do anything, try to make a relationship happen or try to even try to have sex or anything with anyone. I just feel like that when I've always had this thing about my depression that is that I need to concentrate on that while it's happening.
Hmm.
I can't
Yeah.
let and I don't. So I kind of then my personal life takes a backseat to that so that I can try
Hmm.
to deal with it. And even when I can't deal with it, it always has. So it's to me that mental managing mental health means that you have to manage it first before anything else in your life.
Right.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you just have to put other things either on a shelf or just try to
Mhm.
keep them as lowly active as possible.
So talking about your growing up, right? Looking at the current climate, and I ask this because for myself, I find myself having to reconfigure my thinking. Um, how does it feel looking at the climate the way it is now? Do you think we're headed in the right direction with all like the pronouns and the, trying to be inclusive of being so inclusive that we're less inclusive, if that makes sense? Um, do you think that for the alphabet mafia, we're taking a step in the right direction
Mm.
based on what you've seen?
Yeah, I think sometimes, yeah. I mean, I think we're trying to include a lot of things that aren't necessarily about homosexuality in there.
Mm,
Um,
Mhm.
you know, and but I also think that, um, as far as pronouns goes, I think pronouns are okay. But the best person to actually talk to about pronouns is Vale, because I felt like I apologized to her once for
yeah.
misgendering her, and she said, "Oh, you know what? People make mistakes." And I know, I know, I feel that I know you, I've known you well enough to know that you're not always going to get it right, and not everyone that I like is going to get it right all the time.
Mhm.
And I think that I want to get it right all the time for everyone that I can, you know,
Right.
and I feel that sometimes, I don't, and I also, but also, you know, I want to respect everyone. I think the most important thing is respect, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's part of mental health as well, as respecting people's mental health,
Totally.
which
Right.
Yeah.
Now, and I know Star Child's going to jump in on this because he loves talking about spirituality. Um,
Mm.
as a Jewish man, and you're not only just ethnically Jewish, right? You're also religiously, you follow Judaism. Um,
well, I'm not
how
really,
is
I haven't been actively Jewish for a while, but I still consider I want to come back to going to temple eventually. But yeah.
okay, okay. I was gonna say, where does your sexuality play into that relationship with your spiritual?
I don't, it's something that I think is, for me, I think it's separate, but at the same time, I know that in Orthodox Judaism, it's really not accepted. I'm not, but I've never really gone to an Orthodox temple. And I think that, um, I was raised Reform, and I don't really, there were no people when I was growing up that were ever out. So it's really,
Mm.
there were people I know and who either came out eventually or I found out were gay, but it was pretty obvious afterwards, after the fact, knowing it. And I think that and just that when I was growing up, people didn't, people weren't open about things.
Right, right.
And people couldn't
Mm.
be. They had to wait till they got out of town. I mean, there's
Mhm.
this my uncle who was a really brilliant, smart man. He went to Vanderbilt. As a matter of fact, he was like a perfect student and everything. He had no behavioral problems or anything. My grandfather sent him to military school. And
Uh,
so my brother Paul said this to me because we were cleaning out Uncle Sam's house and we found his high school yearbook, right? And my brother Paul said, I'm pretty sure that people thought that Uncle Sam might be gay, so he sent him to military school to kind of get the gay out of him. And who knows if he would have
Mm,
told the commandant of the military school at the time, I think my son is gay, because that was something that people probably did in those days.
Mhm.
mhm.
And I'm pretty sure I don't know, but I think he was probably valedictorian of his class because my mother was valedictorian of her class at Winchester, Tennessee High. But then my uncle went to Vanderbilt, and then he went to John Hopkins for medical school. And later in life, we never used the word gay to each other, right? He had a partner that he was with for 50 or 60 years at least.
Cool.
And
Wow.
and and later in life, I asked him a question, and I asked him a question about something, and I forgot what it was. But he had said he said something to me that that my grandmother said to him that if he had to get out of Tennessee to be happy, that she was all for that and that it was okay with her.
Mm,
And
mm.
that's a big thing for a lady who lived, and at that time they lived in Columbia. My grandfather retired. They moved to Columbia, Tennessee, because there was a relative that lived there as well. And for my grandmother, who was a very proper Southern lady, to say that to her son is a pretty big deal.
Right.
It's very understanding, and I doubt that they would have ever even discussed it or used the word gay or homosexual or anything else. You
Mhm.
just say that. My Aunt Charlotte, and it's very possibly that she really didn't know my uncle. She was kind of naive, and I found out later that she had been in and out of mental hospitals for depression and everything.
Mhm.
Um, my Aunt Charlotte used to say that Uncle Sam was a confirmed bachelor. It's a code word for gay, but it's also
Yeah.
people who are unaware of people being gay would also say that, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
But he had this longtime roommate that was his roommate when he was in medical school, and then I think they moved to Arizona, a little bit separately from each other, but like close enough. And they lived in a house and owned a house. I think my Uncle Sam actually owned the house, but yeah, it was really, I mean, it's pretty obvious. And to be honest, even when I knew that I was gay, I didn't think of them as gay for a long time,
Mhm.
which was kind of funny, to not see that until like I was in college, that I did not realize that they were a gay couple. So, but he never came. Bronson was a great guy. Everybody loved Bronson. He never came. He was invited to all the family events, but he never came. And I'm pretty sure they made a decision that he would never go to any family events. And then I
Uh,
think, and then the only time I ever saw him at a family event was my cousin Brian's wedding, and then my Aunt Charlotte and Uncle Phil had like a 60th anniversary dinner or something, and they were at that.
Hmm.
He was at that, but still, it's kind of weird. I mean, it would have been nice if he would have been able to come to the bar mitzvahs, and my mother did invite him to all the bar mitzvahs. So, but I'm sure they made a decision that even if they never held hands or never danced or never did anything, showed affection, that people might talk.
Right.
And
mm,
that's just the way it was for a lot of gay couples in those
Right.
days. They made those decisions that you don't go to family events.
Yeah.
mm.
Unfortunately. Did you ever speak with him about his sexuality like when you got older, or is it just something that just remained?
Well, with Uncle Sam, you mean Bronson or Uncle Sam?
Uh I got confused. I guess I thought we were talking about the one who had the partner and didn't come
Yeah,
family.
that was okay. The one who didn't. Okay, Uncle Sam came to all the family events, but his partner never came.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Brinson was the partner.
And
Got it.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, and Uncle Sam, uh, I had a couple of conversations that talked around everything. That's when he told me the story about my grandmother. That my grandmother said, if you feel that you have to be happy, please, you don't have to stay in Tennessee, go live wherever you want. And then my grandfather was a pathologist. My Uncle Sam was a pathologist, and then he went to work at the University of. He was eventually like the head of pathology at the University of Arizona.
Huh.
But I don't think they knew that he was gay there. So, but he was instrumental in making sure that that they got all their systems computerized and everything like that. He was a very interesting, very eccentric individual, and he was extremely smart and funny and just really wonderful to be around. So
that's I think we cut
Do you
Doug
feel like,
off at one point when he was trying to speak. Douglas, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I'm just kind of, you know, lots of topics are being addressed. I'm just trying to see what to grab onto. Um, but no, I mean, I think yeah, it's really interesting when it comes to when it comes to like someone's identity and like, revealing it or not revealing it, and the repercussions or the repercussions of it depending on the region of where you're living or who you're around. I mean it can be very unpredictable, and also I think, in terms of like who you can trust with that kind of, like, I mean, who you can trust with that in terms of, I mean, I can speak from in terms of like from the vantage point of like mental health status, like that's something that I also, I grapple with. And it's very similar to what Generalissimo was talking about as well in terms of like, it's a part of you that it's a part of you that you may be reluctant to broadcast. And then if you do broadcast it, it's really a gamble in terms of like, the blowback that you could possibly face as a result. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
or the acceptance that you could, like, the surprising amount of acceptance that you could wind up that they can also wind up generating also. So I mean, I've had to deal with that as well in terms of like disclosing, details about my mental health and stuff to certain people. And I don't really go around doing that. I only a select few people know about it. And it's about I have bipolar disorder, so it's like, I don't, and I've been dealing with that for half of my life, so it's like I don't really, I think I've learned at this point to be like, to be very, to be hyper selective, as to who I disclose it to, you know?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I want to take that time to say, next month, and I probably have the dates wrong. I think it's October 10th or 11th. It is National Coming Out Day. And it's one of those things that now people look at and they're like, what's the point of this? Why is this necessary? But then we think of, thinking back, like I said, like when I was younger, coming out was this thing that wasn't safe. It wasn't okay to come out until I got older, like in this current climate, to be able to just be comfortable and out with yourself. And so that's why, I just want to point out, like, that's why that holiday is there.
I
Because
have a
it
thing
was,
about coming out. Can I tell you it?
yeah, let's hear it.
I think that most people don't have to come out after they hit 25 or 30, because if their friends are normal, intelligent people, they will have
Right.
figured it out. And some people will ask you, and some people won't ask you. And in in most in most cases, it's a matter of there's an opening there to ask you. And
Mhm.
I've had to tell people because they had tried to fix me up with women, but that doesn't really happen anymore. But it had happened, and I feel that I don't think I ever had to come out to anyone. I think told my mother, and I think I said something to my well, I said something to one of my brothers. I think I said things at different times to my brothers, but I don't think I ever came out to them. I think they all knew, you know.
Mhm.
And it wasn't that I was obviously a gay person and I was stereotypical or flamboyant. It was just that, you know. And then there was also a whole thing with, and I've never discussed it with any relatives, but except I have a lesbian relative
Mhm.
on the other side of the family, and so you know, she knows, her mother knows, I'm sure her brother knows. You know, I mean, I don't. It's not something I readily just talk about, but
Mhm.
there was a while when I was invited to family events and always placed at the old person's table with my mother and
Mhm.
never at the singles table. And I hated that so much because I was my mother's date to them. And I know other gay men who have had that happen where they get treated as their mother's dates.
Yeah.
And it's really not a great
Mm,
thing.
yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
you don't want to be in your early or mid 20s sitting at a table of old people. And you know, it's not a good thing. And
Yeah.
when you want to talk to other people, you know what I'm saying? And that happens, you know, and I don't know, you know, it's not a horrible thing, but it's not always a good thing because it to me it enlists a sort of stereotype.
Right. You know,
So,
and my thoughts on coming out are a little different. And it may just be like you said, you're not stereotypically flamboyant or something. But for myself, as masculine presenting, I feel like every new situation became a coming out event for myself, and I hated it. And when I say coming out, I'm not talking about the Diana Ross, like, I'm coming out. Like, it's not a party, right? But when you show up to a job interview in a shirt and tie as a female, um, you know, you're not saying, "Hey, I'm gay," but they make assumptions, right? So every time you start a new job or you go to a new location, or it feels like this kind of like quiet coming out that you have. And I had it the same thing like when with my mom. I never really said, "Hey, mom, I'm gay." I just like one day I went to her house and we were cooking dinner, and she just kind of looked at me and was like, "How come you never bring any girls home?" And I was just like, "What makes you think I like girls?" And she was
uh,
like, "You're the son I never had." So like,
Mhm.
yeah. And I know, I don't know if I'm outing them or not, but I know Star Child has had a different experience, being that he
oh yeah.
has kind of stepped into himself a lot recently, right?
Cis hetero passing for a long time. Um, Maybe I wasn't passing as well as I thought I was.
But you're married to a woman you have a teenage child, right?
Yep, yep. And yeah, which is a very, yeah, completely different experience. Like, I mean, one of the things that I've been interested in as you've been talking is just the way that you put the pieces of your identity together. Um, you know, kind of like you have like it seems like there's differentiation between the aspects of your identity, whereas I think that sometimes in like younger queer community, it's kind of like, oh, all of it is related and connected, and it's all part of my queerness or something like that. And you know, so I'm noticing, you know, maybe a generational difference there, or just your personality, you know, like that there's this one aspect of me and then there's this other aspect of me, and they don't have to be, you know, interrelated or part of the same thing or something like that.
Yeah. For sure. Well, we have reached that time. Generalissimo, if you want to share some poems with us, we're gonna give you some time. 15 minutes starting now. It's 6:50. So go ahead to 7:05. Show us what you got.
The first poem is for our friend Rusty Rose, who was 17 years old and inside Stonewall when the whole thing happened. So, and she is in her 70s now. And this is called Before. And it's for Rita, Rusty Rose, and everyone else inside the Stonewall Inn when it was raided by the NYPD June 28th, 1969. And just to go back, Stonewall had obviously been raided more than once before because all gay bars were periodically raided back then. They were all owned by the mob, and they weren't like official businesses because you couldn't have gay bars couldn't be, it was illegal to have a gay bar. And basically they were run by gay people, and the police received bribes to not raid them, but they still had to raid them every now and then. And for some reason, when the Stonewall was raided, it created this whole fervor outside of the bar, which is what most people know about, as opposed to the people that were inside the bar. So this is for Rita, Rusty Rose, and everyone else that was inside Stonewall. The Shangri-Las sang "Give Him a Great Big Kiss" on the jukebox before it happened. It was a hot, humid evening. Judy had passed 6 days prior. She was one of the original allies decades before the word ally was used for our purposes. Dorothy was the ultimate lost soul in a surreal, hopeful tale. We all hoped for a world where windows did not have to be blacked out in our bars. We all hoped we didn't have to hide our true selves in public or at work. None of us believed it was possible. There was always a chance the cops might raid our spaces and print our names in the papers. It was a hot, humid evening. The subway was crowded. I climbed the steep mountainous stairs from underground, walked up Christopher Street, told the bouncer at the door the password, and entered. I sat at the bar. The beer was cold. I felt relief as it cooled my throat. I was in a place that was filled with people like me. Dare I use the word family? It was as safe as a space could be decades before someone would say the words safe space. Patrons danced and smiled and flirted just like any other bar. Then it happened. And then I'll do that piece I was talking about later, and it's sort of a different kind of poem. And so when I was told that I was inconclusive, my mind was just all blank, and it was like I was in a trance almost. So this is called Wrong Time, Wrong Place. I walked only 6 or 7 Manhattan blocks that afternoon. Yet in that short amount of time, I completed my first marathon. Colors no longer existed. The world was gray like a black and white TV. Everyone and everything around me was in slow motion. Then I realized it was I that was in slow motion. If you play a 45 RPM record on 78, voices will sound like Chip and Dale or Alvin and the Chipmunks. If you play a 45 RPM record on 33 and a third, voices will stretch into an unintelligible, perpetual piece of taffy. Emotion no longer existed. Exhalation no longer existed. My lungs filled with bus and taxicab exhaust. My every breath was asthmatic, and I couldn't find any oxygen for this new emblematic emphysema. All of a sudden, I was an ant who accidentally returned to the wrong mound of dirt. And when I delivered a microscopic piece of human discarded chocolate chip cookie crumb to my queen, I realized this was not my queen, and this was not the first time in my life I had arrived at the wrong place. And that was the poem I wrote as a result of that, but I wrote it several years later. After I had a conversation about it with a friend. Where was I? So let's do don't have that many extra pieces that are really about being gay. So, um,
You don't have to only do
I
pieces.
know,
Oh,
I
okay.
know, I know that, but I'm gonna try to do the ones that I do have. So, let's do when a kiss feels like your life exists in a movie, and this was in the Red or Green Books LGBTQ anthology. You leaned in to kiss me, and somehow our noses didn't crash into each other. Somehow, the way your lower lip and upper lip managed to grab and release my lower lip seemed as if a famous movie director had choreographed our first kiss. I felt my heart beating against the Pima cotton blue and white striped polo dress shirt I wore beneath a red cashmere sweater. Your hand was on my shoulder, and you rubbed it across my barely there 20-year-old chest and commented in a soft voice, I love the feel of cashmere. Then you wrapped your 23-year-old arms around me as you pressed your soft lips against mine, and time stood still. I felt your hands travel down my back. Then you stepped away and smiled at me and said, if you want to stay a little longer, you can. You were older than me, and my only other experience with a guy was this guy in front of me in line at a grocery store with whom I had an innocuous small talk conversation, who then walked up to me after I got to my car. He was gorgeous with perfect hairy runner's legs. He started a conversation as I put my groceries in the trunk. I hope I'm not wrong, but I don't live far from here if you want to come by. I didn't realize we were flirting with each other simply by having a conversation. We started kissing at his place, and he was overzealous with his tongue, which I wasn't too fond of, but it didn't take too long for two skinny college boys to find their way to naked. Every touch from his fingertips and hands felt like my body was custom made for him. It was as if he was made of electricity. He was my first. There were things I needed to learn. He became my tutor. I was a willing student. We'd meet once or twice a week at his place, which lasted for about 2 months. We'd always get naked within a few minutes of my arriving and stay undressed my entire visit as if we were nudists. I bought Paul Young's Secret of Association. I put the cassette in his stereo system on side two. The first song was I Want to Tear Your Playhouse Down. The whole side two was a soundtrack for a sex romp. I think we cared for each other, but it was the 80s, we were closeted, and there was no chance of us continuing without blowing up our lives. When you and I met, you were a grad assistant to a professor. I made an appointment with you to help me with something I didn't understand. Afterwards, you suggested we grab some dinner sometime. Again, another time I didn't realize I was flirting. I could definitely feel my heart beating against my preppy knit shirt as I sat opposite your desk. And when you took me to that healthy food restaurant and paid the bill, I was too naive to realize we were on a date. It was a breezy, cool, early spring Florida evening. You suggested we take a walk in a small nearby park. You asked me if you could kiss me beneath a blooming magnolia tree. It was a soft, gentle kiss, but felt more passionate than any kiss my previous sort of not boyfriend had planted on me. You asked me to follow you back to your place, which I didn't hesitate to do. You were never overzealous with your tongue or a sloppy kisser. Our secret 6-month tryst laid the groundwork for how I learned to treat future romantic partners with respect. You never pushed me to do things I didn't want to do. We had stopped seeing each other by November. You finished your graduate degree shortly after then and moved across the country. It should have broken my heart and sent me into a severe depression, but you had taught me I was capable of eventually having a real relationship with another man, even though it would take me several years till I moved to New York City in 93 to live as an out gay man and have a full-fledged relationship. I don't think we were in love, though I might have thought we were. We both lived separate lives outside of us. Grocery store guy was more of a dalliance, the start of a new learning curve. What we were was more than that, even though it was just a secret, and we never met or talked again. It felt as if our story was a series of vignettes in a movie directed by a not yet famous director before his first film would change the life of a closeted gay 20-year-old college kid desperately in need of the kind of knowledge and experience to recognize his true self and live a full life. Okay, we'll go from there to just add a little punch. I really like this piece. And this is a true story. That was a true story too. Well, there's a lot of true stories. Just add a little pinch. Once upon a time, I did not get overwhelmed by rooms designed for loud, overlapping conversations where I have to yell at the top of my lungs to be heard by someone whose face is only inches from my face, where the idea of an intimate conversation would sound like a macroaggression arm wrestling match using vocal cords instead of arms if all of a sudden everyone else in the room stopped their screaming. Once upon a time, this guy I had a crush on invited me to see the American Ballet Theater at Lincoln Center. The only other ballet I had ever attended was a school field trip to the Nutcracker. Before the ballet, we went to a loud restaurant with jazz playing so loud everyone had to scream to hear each other, which meant we all had to lean in so close it looked like everyone was leaning in for a kiss. The place was famous for its deconstructed Caesar salad with whole pieces of romaine stacked alternately with shavings of parm sprinkled with black pepper and herbs, topped with a sunny side up quail egg and crispy fried boneless tiny headless anchovies surrounded by a halo of red, yellow, and orange grape tomato halves and a moat of olive oil streaked with a vein of aged balsamic vinegar. The ballet was a modern dance interpretation of rites of spring. I had never imagined the act of someone dragging their feet could be so sensual. The dancers danced with the fluidity of mercury that had escaped from a thermometer and couldn't decide if it wanted to part ways from itself or stay together. In the meantime, this guy I had a crush on, who paid for my dinner, was playing footsie with me beneath our seats. I could barely breathe when he smiled and stabbed my soul with his ice blue eyes. We met in Central Park at an Italian ice cart. He stood behind me in a tank top on rollerblades. While I couldn't make up my mind what flavor I wanted, he helped me choose a combo pina colada and lemon lime. After he got his, we made all sorts of small talk. We proceeded to exchange digits. I borrowed a pen and paper from the Italian iceman. I never thought he'd call me after we met, and I was too afraid to call him, but he called me out of the blue and invited me to the ballet. It was too much for my brain to interpret as anything other than pinch me, I'm dreaming. Once upon a time, I allowed myself to believe that a too good to be true pinch me, I'm dreaming crush would not leave my psyche with a history repeating itself bruised from the pinch. And let's see. It happened on the number 2. It happened when we met. It's true what they say. New York City public transit is one hell of a matchmaker, and a place where everything's moving so fast all the time, it's the only time anyone can stand still while they're still moving. You got on the number 2 downtown bus a stop or two after me. It was a hot, humid day. Every seat was taken. You stomped down the aisle in your scuba diver flippers, announcing to everyone you deserved their seat. I was reading the comics. You rudely elbowed my shoulder as you grabbed the cold steel bar above my head so you could stand still while the bus moved. I looked up and said, "Excuse me." You looked down at me and said, "Excuse you." And over 2 miles later, after we both exited at the same stop, no less, we were exchanging digits. And despite that, I thought you were way out of my league. You asked for my number first and even called me first. On our first date, we went to that place on 7th and A with a narrow, steep staircase leading to a loft space with exposed brick walls, a long pock-marked antique oak bar, and a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Avenue A in Tompkins Square Park. You opened the wine list, put your finger on a Chilean Shiraz, and said, "You'll love it, I'm a bit of an onophile." I was duly unimpressed. After dinner, you led the way to a bar. We walked down Avenue A. About halfway down 9th, there it was. Everything was gold. The ceiling was gold. The floor was gold. The walls were gold. The bar was gold. The upholstery on the stools was gold. The art on the walls was canvases painted gold with frames painted gold. I was blinded by all that gold. I was blinded by your words. I was blinded by the way you talked to me. I was blinded by the way you looked straight through me. And I am not ashamed about what happened in the cab back to your place. My place was a glorified walk-in closet on the second floor of a 5-floor walk-up with a crazy old lady, red-headed super who smoked in the halls, whose son lived across the hall from me. So every time I opened my door, I'd hear, "Kenny, is that you?" Your place was a high-rise with a marble lobby with marble floors, marble walls, and a marble desk for the doorman who looked like a middle-aged Ralph Lauren model. When I finally met your roommate, the bleach blonde nurse with the Baywatch body, Demi Moore voice, and Mae West sense of humor, we were in bed. She walked into your room after a graveyard shift, introduced herself, and stayed for a few minutes to tell us about her day. After she left, you said, "I think she's your type. She's everyone's type." I licked my lips and gave you a sloppy, wet kiss on your 2-day stubble cheek that both tickled and scratched my lips. You gave me a sweet, soft, romantic kiss on the lips back. And despite the inordinate amount of time we spent in bed, the best part of everything was there was never a time we weren't talking. We listened to each other, learned from each other, and taught each other. There was music, movies, theater in New York City. It was something I hadn't experienced in my 27 years of existence and have yet to experience in the 29 years since. Now we live close to 2,500 miles away from each other and haven't met in 24 years. We talk at least once every other month. We can tell each other anything and expect the kind of respect and honesty that rarely happens in today's
Wow.
indispensable
All of
self.
those were amazing. Look at my camera on.
Can I finish?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were still going.
Yeah. We can tell each other anything and expect the kind of respect and honesty that rarely happens in today's indispensable cell phone, Facebook fueled Fox News fake news world. The last time we hung up, I realized in over 29 years, I have never met someone who gave me the jolt you gave me when we first met. When when you meet someone, you take this deep breath you can't release until that person is 100% out of your sight. I'll admit I stood naked and God only knows how many thunderstorms holding a lightning rod, Statue of Liberty style, and have been struck by lightning God only knows how many times, but in my lifetime, I have only received one jolt. The end.
Sorry about
Wow,
that.
that was excellent. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, very excellent. For anyone
Very autobiographical. Yeah, dig it.
dig it. We're bringing it back. Dig it. No, generally, so those are beautiful. Thank you. Um, it was an insight to a part of you that I feel like we don't get to see very often. So I appreciate that. Also, your poem really made me want a Caesar salad. Um, probably not a fancy one with the lettuce stacked like that, but definitely a good one.
Well, that was the age of the deconstructed Caesar salad.
Yeah. I had
Well,
to,
I
there was,
just, sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say there was a little shop where I grew up that made like the Caesar salad, but like they made it with actual anchovies and like they would do it like per order. It was just so good. So good. Um, sorry about that, Star Child. What were you gonna say?
No, I really loved the, just the storytelling in
Yeah.
the poems. I loved the physical details, like just learning about all it just remembering, those like first times that I kissed people, and thinking about like, be aggressive with the tongue, not as aggressive, like it was very sweet. Um and yeah, just very, very beautiful and like, you know, like a just an innocence to it, with that I really love it when I can read, hear something about, intimate, encounters and that has that kind of sweetness and innocence in it. So I really appreciate them.
Yeah. I got this sense of like being a fly on the wall during Generalissimo's heyday with his relationships. It's kind of nice.
Well, then thank you.
Yeah.
I get
You
to
know,
be a fly. I get to be on fly on your wall every once in a while when you read poetry. So yeah.
cool. Cool. Um, one thing you didn't talk about that I'm interested in. This is where we get messy. If you had to describe your type, what's your type?
My type.
Mm-hmm. You like a big muscular man, or you like the little you were in New York City. I'm trying to think.
Well, I never really liked overly muscular men. Just um I I've always preferred people that were, I mean, these days there's nothing, I'm not active at all, so but um and my type now is someone that would be closer to my age. You
Yeah.
know, I don't I'm not into people that are even 10 or 20, even 10 years younger than me, but or 20. I don't want to date a young kid, because I'm not a young kid, you know. Um, I also feel like if I were to meet someone, I would have to feel some sort of connection before anything would ever happen. I'm sort of one of those people. But I've been that way for decades anyways. But I had my share of one night stands when I was younger. I mean, that happens. It's a lot of times you have a one night stand that you don't think is going to be a one night stand, but it ends up being a one night stand, and that kind of can hurt. But I think that no, I don't know what my type really is.
Mhm.
It has to be, but the main thing is I have to feel connected, and I have to feel like there's enough similarities, but also enough differences,
Mhm.
so that you can, so that as you get to know each other and as you get more involved in each other's lives, your lives can interact and you can teach. There's not one teacher. There's, you know what I'm saying? When you're my age, it's a, you want to feel on par with the other person. You're never going to be fully on par with anyone that you meet in every aspect of life, but you want to feel on par with that person in a lot of
Right.
aspects of life.
Describe your ideal date night, like first date.
It's been so long since I've been on a date. I don't know what it would be. I mean, it
Oh,
just, I hate to say it depends on the person, but it does. I mean, I don't think that an ideal date wouldn't necessarily involve food. I think that having someone watch me eat, never a good thing. I'm a messy eater. but I think it should be going to a movie or going to see music, or maybe just, I like I like art. So you can go, like, in Maine, there are a lot of like First Friday events in a lot of towns. So you have, where all the galleries are opened. So you could do that, or you could go to an art exhibit at a museum, go to a movie, music, a play. You walk around together, you talk. There has to be a way to, you might have coffee or dessert or something afterwards. There has to be a way to interact. You know what I'm saying? It has to be something that's more casual.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily going to be about sex, but it also has to be about being able to discover things about each other too, you know, where we can open to each other about a little things. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be the intimate things that you're going to wait to tell people, but that the person is willing to open. I think learning that people are willing to open up to you is the most important part of the continuation of a romantic relationship, as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned. And sometimes it takes time for that to happen. but there's always, there's red flags about what's bad, but then I guess there's I don't know what color the other flags are, but it's whatever there's flags that tell you, hey, this person is going to be someone I want to go out with a second or third time,
Mhm. All right. So last thing before I turn it over to my co-host, if they have anything else, if you could give advice to a young a homosexual uh, writer looking to come into their own, what advice would they give? What advice would you give them?
It's just do you. And being a gay writer isn't about being gay, isn't about writing about being gay. Being a writer is a writer no matter what. So I never really wrote about a lot of gay things over the years because, again, like I said earlier, it was just a part of my life. And if the desire to write about something or a past relationship or something happened, it happened. So I feel like, I've done a lot of writing about mental illness. I've done a lot of, I do a lot of food writing. I do a lot of writing, a lot of fiction writing. I do total fiction storytelling. So, I mean, I do a lot of different things. I think I do a lot of love poems, but my love poems aren't necessarily about me. I do a lot of things that come from movies and TV shows that I've watched, where I recount the stories, or I kind of try to tell them as if it's in my own voice. I mean, I think that do you and listen to the poetry of the other people around you. Being a poet, being a young gay poet isn't about being gay. It's just about being a poet first and foremost. That's what I say, because if you try to center on one thing, you lose the other parts of your identity that are just as important.
Beautiful, beautiful. Star Child, Douglas, anything that you want to ask or throw in before we wrap it up?
No, I'm just really, really grateful. I mean, I've heard your work before, and it's just great to see you again and hear from you again, and also to learn from your unique perspective. As an elder, and I'm sorry, I hope that's not the wrong word to say, but someone who's been around, in the gay community for a while. I appreciate that.
Yeah, same. I'll echo those sentiments. I mean, I think your work is very it comes from a place of real sensitivity and learned experience. And I think, yeah, in terms of, like, as everyone else noted, like the detailing and the just the intricacy of your narratives is just, it's really refreshing. I think that really gives your work like even more resonance, than I mean, and also, like, the way it's almost like it's like a winding, it's a real winding tale that has its like that has its like subtle twists and turns, that I could really appreciate. Um, and it's always delivered very well also. So
Thank you very much. Star Child, since you opened the door, how old are you? I'm 58.
Almost 47. I'm a Virgo. I'm going
Oh,
to be
I didn't.
47 on
I
September
wouldn't have
16th.
been, I would have
Wait,
guessed about 43 or $44. So
when's your
Oh,
birthday, Star
thank
Child?
you.
When's your
Yeah,
birthday?
yeah, it's coming up September 16th.
Ah,
how old is
mine's
your
Thursday.
child?
Mexican Independence Day.
Mine's Thursday. Fellow Virgos,
What?
bro.
Oh, Virgo. Okay.
Okay, Star Child, how old is your child?
Yeah, my eldest is 18, and my youngest is 15.
Wow, those are good ages, huh?
Yeah.
I want to make my claim. I'm the most beautiful in the Zoom room.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Terry Rose has got a little bit on you there.
No.
uh, we love you, Robert. All right. Well,
Thank you.
I hit Generalissimo up 10 minutes before the show started, and he was like, "I'll be there in 10 minutes." So again, I just really want to thank you. I know we focused a lot on your I want to say queer, but I know you said that that's not a word you use to describe yourself. Identity today. But for those listening, just know Generalissimo has a wide variety of work that's very beautiful and very authentic. So please follow, like, share, and get to know him a little bit better. Also, get a copy of his book. Everything I think is all in my mind.
Yeah, just go to The Word is Right. Not The Word is Right. I mean the
Red
Red
or
or
Green
Green
books.
and dial my name in and put an order in with Marissa. I don't know if she has any copies left of my stuff, but she might. So
Sounds good.
and tomorrow is my next Cafe Generalissimo, and I haven't even put the notice out for it yet, but I've got to do that. So
It's all right. A little open
Oh,
mic
yeah, I'll be
time.
there. I'll be there for that. Sure.
cool. Thank you.
I might be at the Grand Canyon, but if I'm not, I'll stop in.
Well, if you're at the Grand Canyon, will you be riding any mules?
I would not do that to an animal. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit on the bigger side, so I don't think it's right for me to be riding on animals. But uh, who knows?
Okay, well, just be careful to not step too close to the edge, okay? Because we need you.
I'll think about it. I think the truth is that love is lovely and Black Noise are going to push me off a bit. So I don't think it's about where I step. But yes, everyone, thank you for coming out to the Out Loud podcast for the month of September. Again, Virgo Gang Gang, Star Child, if I don't talk to you before your birthday, happy birthday. And
Happy
again,
birthday to you.
thank you. Make sure to get your copy of Out Loud Anthology, also on Red or Green Books, along with Brian Franco, Generalissimo's book. But yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Peace.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.